Hey, Stillwater. Welcome to the Still Connects podcast, a podcast all about Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'm your host, Denver Evans, a born and raised Stillwater local and owner of Stillwater Digital Marketing. Every Wednesday, I share a friendly chat with someone in our community that's helping make Stillwater such a great place. Whether you're a longtime resident or just a visitor, this is your place to plug in, stay inspired, and still connect with the stories that shape our community. If you ever want to watch these interviews, you can also check them out on YouTube. For this episode, I got to sit down with Bryan Larison with Lions Meadows of Hope. Let's jump right into the conversation. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Good. So give us just a little bit of overview of who you are and what your position is here at Meadows of Hope, and tell us about the organization.
Well, my name's Bryan. Let's see. I'm the CEO here. I've been working with this agency since May of 2001, so 23 years, almost 24 now.
Wow.
And I'm a licensed professional counselor. Graduated from OSU. And
Go Pokes.
Yeah, go Pokes. So, and we're a foster care agency. We're growing. We've got a foster home over in Sand Springs, and we're recruiting in that area. One in Enid, recruiting there. 4 in Oklahoma County, and recruiting kind of an hour outside of Oklahoma City now. So, doing that, we've got 35 foster families currently, and then we've got a campus south of town that is a foster care community, 5 homes that we let foster parents live in for free whenever they foster large sibling groups.
That's great. So you've been here since 2001.
Mm-hmm.
That was before it was Lions Meadows of Hope.
That is
correct.
That is. Oklahoma Lions Boys Ranch.
Yeah.
is what we were. The history of the agency is actually pretty interesting and a little bit complicated. It's kind of complicated like our name. Most people, somebody yesterday said, "Oh yeah, you're with Lions Hope," and then others people say, "Oh, you're with Lions Meadow," and Lions Meadow of Hope. And so, yeah, we're all of those things. Yeah, we're it's Meadows of Hope is really kind of the heart of it. We had 160 acres of land that was donated to this agency in 1938. It was a family that came here in 1891 and opened that land, homesteaded it, raised their family there. The wife of that couple was orphaned at 11, and they passed away, and then their children decided that the best thing that they could do to honor their parents was to donate that land to the cause of the orphan, to making sure that children had parents, and that children wouldn't go to orphanages or that type of thing, that they would live in a home with parents. And so that's kind of this idea of this meadow, right? This 160 acres, and the hope would be that they could impact children for good. So
that's really great.
Yeah.
So tell me your story. So you said you're an LPC.
Yeah. So I grew up in Bartlesville, born in Tulsa. My family kind of moved around, bounced around for a few years, but finally landed in Bartlesville. And that's where I went to kindergarten, and, through 12th grade, graduated there in Bartlesville. It's a good place to be from, and, we go back every once in a while. But I don't know when, sometime in my junior year, I got invited to a luncheon at the country club for certain students that, had whatever grade point average. And it had to be pretty low because I wasn't a great student. And I went to that class and or that event, and it was OSU, and they said you should come to school over here. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to school at OSU. And my dad's a mechanic. My mom was just an assistant kind of secretary at Phillips 66, and I didn't really see myself as going to college, but I had a grandmother that every time she saw me, she said, "You're going to college." And so she filled out all the applications, and basically if I didn't go to college, then I would have the wrath of my grandmother. So I went, and I came to school over here. And started out. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Maybe an engineer, because my dad was a mechanic, and I'd always loved working with my hands. But I got over here and I went to this big auditorium, and there was a young lady from my high school that I liked, and she got up and went into like hotel and restaurant management.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I don't want to be an engineer. I'm going to go on a hotel and restaurant management tour. And but I didn't actually sign up and do that. But I'd worked on a ranch through high school since I was about 13 or 14. I worked on this little ranch that this guy had in the Osage Hills. So Killers of the Flower Moon, that area. I worked on a ranch over there. And so whenever I did get over to here to OSU, I actually started in animal science and looking at farm and ranch management and things like that. And took an animal science class and got a C. And around the same time took a psychology class and got an A, and thought, I think I want to do psychology.
Okay.
And then I just, changed my major, and my focus was psychology, and had a great experience in college, just learning that. And I graduated and talked with a guy that worked in the social services field, and I said, I need a job, I need to, and he was like, well, you're not really going to get a job anywhere with a bachelor's degree in psychology. You're going to have to go on and get a master's degree. But he knew of a community mental health center here in town that was hiring anybody, and so I went to work there, working with kids that have been kicked out of high school, and just, I don't know, it was just something where I just kind of fell into it, and it was something I enjoyed. It was something that I feel like the kids resonated with me, and I resonated with them. And so I started my master's degree while I was working full time in this. At the time, it was called the home-based therapy. Basically, I'd go to these kids' houses and just hang out with them, talk with them. And so that eventually leads me to doing basically behavioral assessments for teenagers, kids that had been maybe suicidal or homicidal, deciding if they need to go to a psychiatric hospital, oftentimes against their will, and that was a tough time. Going to the emergency room and interviewing kiddos and parents and things like that, and it kind of opened my eyes to this really difficult part of society, kids and parents that are really struggling. And then I got a phone call one day from the Lions Boys Ranch, and they said, we need a counselor to come down and start working with some of our kids. And by that time, I'd finished my master's degree, didn't have my license yet, but was under supervision, and started working with them. And that counselor said, I'm out of here. I'm going to go work for OSU and do advising. I'm tired of working with kids. And so I said, oh, what do you think? They'd hire me? And she was like, you want this job? I said, well, I think I do. I went from having like 30 clients to having 12 clients.
Yeah. So this is the counselor at the Boys Ranch.
Yeah. And so I applied and started as the counselor there. And then about a year later, the director left. And so I stepped into an administrative position over the residential program. And now it's 23 years later.
All right. That's really cool. So tell me about so we know your organization does foster care, but how do you all go about that? What makes your organization unique?
Yeah. Well, our organization started in 1938. And so we had this long history of board members, community members, just people that have been involved in the program that just brought a lot of experience to just how we deal with and how we see children's behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, for me, that was this awareness that this was really hard. It was very difficult, and we're choosing to do this. like we didn't have to.
Right.
I mean, we could just not. And but this idea that like this, it's really this mission-driven belief that children like deserve to be loved and cared for in a safe place by parents, right? Not by workers or employees, but by parents. And so, and as the Boys Ranch, it was it had to do with licensing, it had to do with contracts with the state, but basically, the result was our kids that came to the Boys Ranch were in foster care. They had been in foster homes, usually with their brother or sister or sisters, and they were typically the oldest kids in the family. And those oldest brothers were typically the parents of those younger kids. They were the ones that endured most of the abuse of the family, and they were the hardest. They were the hardest to deal with, and so they would end up getting kicked out, and we'd get them after 20 or 30 or more failed foster care placement. And you would think that these kids were just the worst people in the world, but they weren't. You spend a little time with them, and you get to see their heart, and you understand that these are just hurt kids.
Yeah,
and they're hurting other people, and they're not making good choices. And so I think that our history of caring for those older brothers that often get left in the foster care system and separated from their siblings, that mission, I mean, for me, it's still in my heart because I still see, the eyes of those kids, that were separated from their siblings. And so I think that it's like really deep in us, it's in the land that we serve on. It's in our mission. And I think it's not to say that other people aren't as committed, but we're committed.
Yeah.
We're committed.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
So tell me more about kind of the efforts that you guys make to keep those families together. You mentioned the houses.
Yeah. So we have 5 homes on our campus. They're large, 4-bedroom, 4-bath homes. They're about 2,800 square feet. And basically the goal is, kids come into custody, sibling sets of 3 or 4 or 5 or more, often are separated. And so our campus is really designed to keep those brothers and sisters together. And so that's, we typically foster parents start out with us fostering with us in their own home. They'll have, most people don't come into foster care wanting large sibling groups. Most people say, oh, well, I'll take 1 or 2.
Right.
So they take 1 or 2, and typically, their heart leads them to say, if we had more room, we could say yes. The need's pretty constant. There's about 130 to 150 requests for placements for kids every day in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And so our foster parents that work with us tend to hear about those placement requests. And whenever they say, if we had more space, we would take more care of more kids, then we ask them to apply to live on our campus. And if they want to, and we think it's a good idea, then we move them out. I just got an application this morning for one of our families that's been fostering with us for a while. And, they started out with 1 kiddo, and then a sibling set of 3 came in, and they're like, okay, we could do that. And then they're like, we don't have the room. We need not only the space of our campus, but the camaraderie of the other foster parents that are also in this with you.
Yeah.
So that's, it's not rocket science. It's just good people that need a little extra square footage. We say their heart is bigger than their square footage. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So they can live out there for free?
They live out there. Well, no rent. They pay.
Okay.
They pay their utilities.
Okay.
And they mow their yard, and
But so they don't have a house payment.
they don't have a house payment.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, and our vision for people that live out there is that they would live out there between 2 and 5 years. We don't want them to live out there forever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really an opportunity for them to take those 2 years to 5 years and take the money that they would be spending on a house payment and save that money.
Right.
So that whenever the time comes for them to move off our campus, either they've decided that they don't want to foster anymore, that season's over in their life, or they've adopted the children that they were fostering,
Mm-hmm.
then they can move out and put that money down on a house. And
Right.
you know,
Or expand into a space where they can have all of that extra room
Absolutely.
to continue fostering.
Yeah.
Outside of that, make room for another family who's kind of stepping into that larger foster role.
Right.
That's really great.
Yeah. That's really the best case scenario for us. In fact, that's the plan of the family that interviewed and applied and sent their application in this morning. Is they're going to take 2 years. They just got this. They just adopted one kiddo. They have a sibling set of 3, and then they found out that sibling set of 3 has got another sibling coming into custody.
Oh yeah, is that a pretty common occurrence?
It is. Yeah, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon that there maybe is 3 or 4 kiddos that were taken into custody, and then the mom is pregnant again and hasn't changed those patterns. And it's typically drug related. And then when there's drug related, there's often domestic violence that is connected to that. And those 2 things are probably one of the hardest things for someone to escape from, addiction and domestic violence. And so, unfortunately, if a mom, or the parents are stuck in that cycle, then unfortunately, often the only resolution is to remove the child from that situation. Yeah.
So, you guys have some events throughout the year.
Yeah.
Tell me about those.
Well, we just had our, it's a strange thing. It's called a Parade of Checks. We just had that on Saturday. We're connected with the Lions of Oklahoma. And so there's about 140 Lions clubs across the state. They're our corporate membership. So every nonprofit has a corporate membership. Some nonprofits have like a private group of people that are their corporate membership. And for us, that's the Lions of Oklahoma. And so all of our board members are elected by Lions clubs or appointed by Lions club members that are our board members. And so it's typically the first or second Saturday of December. We invite Lions clubs from across the state to come to Stillwater. They bring a check. They get in the line. They stand up. They come to the front. They say, this is so-and-so from Lions Club, and here you go. Here's some money. And so we like that type of fundraiser.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. Just bring money and have a lunch, and then, we'll go home.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Then you guys have your suits and sneakers gala coming up?
Yeah, we've got that's kind of our appreciation gala. I call it a gala. I don't know if that's appropriate. Some people call it gala.
Gala, whatever.
Okay, whatever.
We know it's an event.
That's right.
It's a nice event.
And it's again, it's kind of a unique. It's a fundraiser, obviously, but it's kind of a unique fundraiser, as in we don't really ask for any money that night. It's $1,000 to get in for 2.
Or if someone has donated,
and it's
over $1,000 over the year, or
right.
Right.
And so it's not that you buy a ticket for $1,000, but it's our donors that have given over the year. We invite them to an appreciation gala, and one of the reasons we do that is because all of our donations that we get each year are matched up to $300,000. This year, they're matched up to $300,000.
Wow.
And so we had a Lions Club member from Shawnee that passed away and left a portion of his estate to us. But the catch is his estate will only give us as much money as we can raise from other people.
Right.
And so it's the appreciation night is really like the Paul Milburn appreciation night, because we spend all year raising money from individuals or, foundations, businesses, whatever.
Yeah. And
then that night we just show appreciation to the Paul Milburn Gift Fund. It's not a very it's a gift fund, right? It's not. Whenever Paul passed away, he gave away all of his money. He gave it all away.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there's a group of people that manage that money, and so we just each year our goal is to raise that money and then match it.
That's great.
Yeah. So it takes a $300,000 year of raising donations and turns it into $600,000.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we throw a party on that night.
Yeah. It's a good party. We were there last year.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we try to have fun.
Yeah. It's at the Mayo.
It's at the Mayo. So if you're a Tulsa King fan, that's where he stayed the first season.
Oh, yeah.
Mayo. And so you want to come over there and be a mobster boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good.
Wear your suit, wear your sneakers.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what else do you guys have? You guys have a golf tournament?
We have a golf tournament in June. We have that at the Stillwater Country Club, and and it typically sells out each year. So we send invitations to people that have played before, and typically they buy up all the spots, and we have a good time. It's it's hot. It's usually really hot.
Yeah. What kind of tournament is it? Is it a scramble?
Yeah, it's just a scramble.
Yeah. I love scrambles. A lot of good time.
Yeah. You don't have to know how to golf. Basically, we do a par minimum, and so if you're putting for par, you just pick it up.
Yeah. Hey, that's great.
That's it.
Then it's just how many under you are.
Yes. And usually, there's some people that score in the 40s. So I'm not sure how that. Anyway, those are the main things that we do as far as donors or public related. But we do a family fun event every quarter for all of our foster families. So we've done things like, invited all of our families to the trampoline park and, spent the afternoon out there. We've rented out the Cushing Water Park, or this last summer we rented out the Student Union swimming pool. We've rented out the Duncan Theater in Cushing, and we watched Inside Out 2 this summer. And so we try to do something every quarter to invite families, connect them. We went out to Leifer Lodge just a couple of months ago, and around Halloween, and watched Monsters Inc. and
nice.
Just hung out around the fire, and so we try to engage our foster parents as much as we can.
That's really great.
Yeah,
that's awesome that you guys have all that. So have you lived in Stillwater since you graduated OSU?
Yeah, I came to Stillwater in 1991, and stayed in Kerr, 10th floor. Had a corner room, so I was pretty popular.
That's cool.
Yeah. Looked over the campus. I had no idea how cool that was. To just be able to look out my window and see OSU. The campus now.
Yep.
It's
I bet it was a lot smaller back then.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And lived here. Had some really cool experiences here. I worked when I first got here. My first job was at UPS.
Oh yeah.
So it was this really great idea. I didn't have a job my freshman year. I came and I just stayed on campus, and I really just probably had more fun than studying. And so that summer I was like, okay, I've got to get a job, and I've got to crack down so I can stay in school.
Yeah.
And so I got a job at UPS, and I thought it was a great idea because you start at like 5 a.m. and you work till like 8:30 or 9, and then you're done. And at the time, and then this was 1991, it was paying like it was like $11 or $12 an hour, something like that.
In 91?
Yeah.
Dang, that's good money in 91.
Yeah. In 91, I think minimum wage was like $4.30 or something like that.
So you worked at UPS, and then what?
I worked at UPS, and I worked through Christmas of 1992, and I realized that I'm not a morning person, and I never want to do that again.
Yeah.
And so I worked from that summer to that December, and then I don't even think I really told anybody I quit. I just went home for Christmas and didn't come back.
Yeah. They got the message.
I was like, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
So then I got a job at Mazzio's, and I was a delivery driver and made pizzas. And I did that until I graduated college. It was I did not make near as much money.
Right. So how has Stillwater changed over the years?
Wow. Yeah, I remember, all the different locations of Walmart in Stillwater. Everybody calls, now we've got Old Walmart.
Old Walmart on
and
Perkins.
New Walmart.
New Walmart on 6th.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
And I remember when the Old Walmart was the New Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was, yes. And it's changed, but I tell you what, I've I graduated in 95 and decided to stay here and get my master's degree in counseling. And so I was working full time and then getting my master's degree in 99. And so I'd been here 8 years at that point. And it just felt like home, I got married in 96 and we ended up buying a house. It's crazy. In 1996, we bought our first house for $59,500.
Can I buy one for that much nowadays?
Yeah. I don't think so.
Well, you probably can. It's probably just one room.
Yeah. That house just came up on the market again, and it was listed for $149,000.
Wow.
Yeah. But, I raised my kids in that house. We were there for 14 years. And I was on a cul-de-sac over on Cedar Drive. And, it's Stillwater just has really been just a really cool town to live in. I love the summers.
Summers are great. We're experiencing a winter right now,
Yes,
which is also
yes.
very great.
Yes.
Get a little break.
You get a little break in the winter, but the summers. It's when it's kind of one of those deals when the students leave, then you realize, oh my gosh, this is a busy town. Like,
Yeah.
it's busy all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden the kids are gone, and you can like drive down 6th Street.
Yeah.
And,
You don't have to avoid Hall of Fame anymore.
Yeah. But it's also like I love it when they come back. Because then you've got this new energy that's in the town. You can just feel it, you know, and so I love that kind of ebb and flow of but I'm glad for the break because, after a few months, you're like, oh my God.
It's cool and it's unique that it's not the same all the time
Mhm.
because, in places like Tulsa, Oklahoma City,
Yes.
other big cities that have multiple universities,
Yes.
there might be small pockets
Right.
that kind of see that
Mhm.
that influx, but nothing like Stillwater.
No.
Stillwater, it's like the tide coming in and out.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Yeah. And so I think it just reminds you of what we've got, and how cool it is. And, that first weekend in August when you go to Walmart and there's like, no ramen noodles on the shelf. There's no toilet paper.
Yeah.
There's no paper plates.
They have all of they have all the plastic storage bins out. Like, by the way, you're probably going to need one of these.
Right. Yeah. And like this whole pallet of mini fridges.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, okay, the students are back.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
What are some of your favorite places to go in Stillwater?
Well, my most favorite and reliable place to go is Devoted.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, I eat there just about every week, sometimes twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go there, get the tonkatsu ramen with a chili bomb.
Sounds good.
It's so good. Yeah.
I like ramen.
Yeah, and the family that runs that place, they're Stillwater people, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, it's just this.
And to get them on the podcast.
You do, yeah. Laurel and David, I think. Yeah, for sure. They're great people. They started the Crepe Myrtle Market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so cool that you have to walk through the market to get to the restaurant. It feels like a speakeasy.
Yeah.
Speaking of speakeasies, I interviewed John David McCaffrey from the Monarch.
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking at putting in a speakeasy in their basement.
In the basement, yeah. I like the Monarch. I work for a nonprofit though, and so it's appetizers and a couple of drinks are, $150. But I like.
Yeah.
My
Nonprofit budgets are different.
Yeah. So
Talk a little bit about that because I think people hear a lot about nonprofits and a lot of the business owners I've talked to as well. Bobby Wintle, which I don't know what order all my podcasts are going to come out. So,
Yeah.
but I said, what's kind of one of the biggest misconceptions about business owners? And he said, everybody thinks that we're millionaires and we're the furthest thing from it.
Right.
And I know nonprofit world is completely different.
It is. And, I like to say that nonprofit is a tax status, not a business model.
Yeah.
It's like we need to have a little money in the bank.
Right.
We need a little bit.
Right.
But also I've in my career, I started with the Community Mental Health Center in Stillwater called Edwin Fair in 1996. Started out making like $20,800 a year with a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Yeah.
And now I work, now I'm here. And now the Community Mental Health Center in Stillwater pays one of the best rates for their licensed professional counselor.
That's great.
You can go there and make close to $100,000 a year with your LPC.
I feel like mental health has just become a much bigger social conversation in the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's complicated. As a private individual, I just heard this the other day. In 1995, Medicaid reimbursement was $70 an hour for an LPC therapist, and today it's $76 an hour for an LPC therapist.
Yeah, that doesn't track with inflation.
It doesn't track. But community mental health centers, they're able to leverage some federal dollars, some grants, and their own fundraising to pay people better and keep them.
Kind of offset that and balance it out. That's
and
great.
I think that's really the balance in nonprofit, especially in foster care. One of the biggest complaints that people will tell me about being in foster care is the turnover of the caseworkers. That caseworkers, might only last 18 months or something like that, and people step into foster care and they don't really have a great understanding of the system or how it works, and they really need that caseworker to be the expert.
Right.
And then if your caseworkers are turning over and over, then they're not the expert.
Yeah. Well, and it's a hard job because they're kind of on the front lines experiencing what's going on with these families and things like that. And so you guys have foster care. Is it foster care resource specialists?
Yeah. Foster support specialists.
Support specialists.
Yeah. DHS calls them a resource specialist because they call foster parents resources. And so we tend not to call our foster parents resources.
Yeah.
So we don't call our foster care workers resource workers.
It's not very people friendly.
Not very people friendly.
No.
Your resource. But what I think the biggest thing that's changed as far as nonprofit is this awareness that it's okay to raise money to supplement our contract from the state in order to attract quality employees, retain them, and then provide great training and supports for them. Because, our foster care workers are, they're seeing some of the hardest things in our society, and it's a really hard job.
Yeah.
And it would be easier to not see that and go work for Chick-fil-A and just like your biggest problem is cold French fries, you know? But so I think that change in nonprofit is recognizing that this is a mission-driven organization, and people do give a ton of their heart and their mind to it. But that doesn't mean we can't pay them a living wage,
right,
and care for them well and care for their mental health so that they can stay in this space as long as they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really great. So how big is your team?
Well, we have, we have 8. We have 8 right now. So got me. I'm the CEO. I also serve as like the clinical director. And so, I staff cases that are difficult and, we need a little, maybe a different perspective on. And then we've got, a director of operations that is over our campus and kind of our HR and finances and things like that.
Right. The business kind
The
of
business
side of things.
Yeah. It keeps the tax man happy, and
Yeah.
all those, keeps us out of jail and being sued and all that.
Yeah.
Fire marshal happy and all that. And then we've got a director of development, and so her job is to build relationships and ask for money, and she's good at that. And then we've got an assistant operations person that is kind of our receptionist here in the office, but she also manages our family center that's on our campus, so our foster parents can use that space, and so she kind of keeps that up and deals with the reservations and use of that facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got our foster care team. So we've got Jamie as our director of foster care. She's been with us 8 years now. She worked for DHS prior to that, was in investigations and really saw the kind of the hard side of DHS.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Lena Ortego, who is our program supervisor, our foster care supervisor. And so she's more, she works on the placement line, overseeing placement of kids each day. She does our onboarding. And so our new foster family, she'll help them through the process of training and interviews and things like that. And then we've got Brittany Dutton and Michaela Cosman, that is our foster support specialist that work directly with our foster parents. And then we just hired a new person that will be starting in January named Jordan.
Awesome.
And so, so we're growing and expanding. Yeah.
That's great. So big plans for 2025?
It's funny. It's harder and harder to find people to foster. We look back 5 years ago, there were a little over 2,000 people that were fostering in what we call traditional foster care. And now we've got about 1,500. So we've lost about 100 foster parents a year. So 2025 is just really focused on recruitment, but not just recruitment, but also really focused on supporting our current foster parents, making sure that
retention,
that they're that they're happy about it. We say foster care is impossible. What we're being asked to do, what foster parents are being asked to do, is often an impossible thing. To love a child so much and make sure that they're cared for well, and at the same time help that child reunify with their parents, to connect with those biological parents and mentor them and support them and and then love this child.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard a lot of people say I couldn't foster because I couldn't
give them back.
Give them back. Yeah. What do you say to people when they say that?
Then, two things. One is, and then you probably shouldn't foster. Because if foster care is really just about you, then you're probably not going to make a very good foster parent, because we don't need foster parents that are looking for the perfect child to fit into their life. We're looking for foster parents that want to foster the children that are actually in foster care, and those kids need a family to say yes. And it's going to be very disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, I would say that the person that says I could never foster because I could never give them back, they might not make a very good foster parent. But at the same time, those make the best foster parents, because the children that are in care deserve to be loved and like just with abandon and held and told that everything's going to be okay, even when it might not be, because that's what parents do.
Mm-hmm.
And then be willing to have your heart broken, and then decide if foster care is still a good idea, because it might be that you pour your whole heart out for this one child that come into your home, and that child goes home, and it's a heartbreak, and you decide that you don't want to do that again. But there's 4 million people in Oklahoma, and there's 1,500 foster parents. It's already a small group of people.
Right.
And so if you just do it one time, you've already stepped into this like 0.002% of the population. So you're already a hero in my book. So one time is it really just come in, love one kid, get your heart broken, and then just like retire a hero, you know?
Yeah. Or decide you want to keep going.
And that's the crazy part.
Live on campus.
And that's the crazy part is people step in. They don't know why. They'll come in. They'll say, it's probably not a good time. We don't have any kids. We don't know how to be a parent. We don't know if this is the best time, but we want to do it. And then other times, well, we've got these little children. I don't know if this is the best time, but we just want to do it. Oh, we've got teenagers. I don't know if this is the best time. Teenagers are so busy, but we're still going to do it. Oh, our kids are out of the house and we're empty nesters. It's probably not the best time to foster, but we're still going to do it.
Yeah.
And then they, they come in and they see the just the difficulties, and they embrace it, and they change as people. They grow as people, and then they stay, and they say yes to the next group, and maybe their yes the next time is a little bigger. Maybe their yes the next time is, I was afraid to take a teenager, but now I understand that teenagers are not as scary as I thought they were. So
that's really great. So how do people get involved?
Well, there's a sign on the front of our building on Western that says, what would it take to say yes to what would it take to say yes to foster care? So just ask yourself that question. If you can come up with a couple of things, then you can go to our website, click on contact us or send us an email, call us, come in, and and if you have an idea of like what would it take for me to say yes to foster care, and you can come up with a few things, like, I don't know, if I knew that somebody was going to be there, whenever I called, if I knew that, if I wanted, if I just wanted one child, or if I knew that I didn't want a child over 5 or something like that, would that be okay? Come up with some of those ideas, and then consider that, and then come in and let's talk about it.
So what does that process look like? Because you guys are certified to train foster parents, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're just like DHS, as in we certify people to be foster parents. The process takes 60 to 90 days. It starts with an application. We're going to ask, who's living in your home, what your income is, what your expenses are. We're going to do an interview. It's called a resource family assessment. And we're going to ask you all the questions that you hoped nobody would ever ask you. And we're going to just really try to find out what your heart is. Because there are people that are bad actors in this world that have motivations that aren't good, and they shouldn't be around kids. And so we're going to be suspicious of everybody that wants to be a foster parent, but at the same time, we're going to train them and help them. And, but we're going to go through that process together. We'll go through your house and make sure your house is safe for kids. We'll train you and talk about what the process of foster care is. There's a lot of words and vocabulary that's new. We'll go through all that. And then at some point we say, you're open and this kiddo needs somewhere to go tonight. Are you in or not? And then we bring a kiddo to your house.
Wow. There you go. Do you guys have volunteer opportunities outside of that?
We don't have a lot of volunteer opportunities. What we really encourage our foster parents to do is connect with their natural and existing supports. So we love it when our foster parents are a part of a community, that community is able to support them, and that can be a faith community, it can be a neighborhood, it can be sometimes sports teams, or a bunch of moms of little leaguers are great supports for each other. So if you got a community, we'll ask you for that. But we do have some opportunities. Basically, it's bring a meal, drop off a meal to give to our foster parents. You can, if you're interested in volunteering and you want to have some connection with our foster parents, then we do have a background application that we can go through, and then we could introduce you to some of our foster parents that maybe don't have that built-in support system. That maybe those opportunities can be from maybe doing some tutoring or maybe just coming over for a couple of hours to do a babysitting or something like that. But basically, whenever people ask about volunteering, I tell them, look around your circle. Notice if there's anybody in your circle that is parenting children that don't belong to them. And my guess is there probably is. There's probably a grandparent raising a grandchild. There's probably an aunt and uncle raising, a nephew, or traditional foster parents that are actually fostering. And then just say, hey, could I come over for a couple of hours so you can go to Walmart? Because if you have that natural relationship already, then foster parents can take advantage of that. Yeah.
Right.
So
that's great. And then you guys have your giving tree towards the end of the year.
Yeah, towards the end of the year.
Yeah. Turkey and ham donations.
Yes.
Smoked by Bad Brad's.
That's right.
That was really great.
Yeah. And Bad Brad's is a great partner of ours.
And then you guys share some immediate needs on social media from time to time. If a parent gets a newborn baby, needs a car seat or something like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely follow on social media.
Yeah.
Just to keep up with what's happening. They have some great video testimonials that have been shared on there recently. All that good stuff.
Yeah. And I think there might be a good opportunity, to talk about maybe some of the misconceptions of foster care.
Oh yeah. Let's do it.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
I think, there's been, well, first of all, when the state gets involved in an abuse or neglect case, they're having to make some really difficult decisions. And I will say historically, even in the last 20 years, we've had as many as over 12,000 children in foster care. At that time, we were twice the national average per capita. And so the state was taking a lot of children into care, and they were staying in care for a while. But that's not the case anymore. We're down to right at about 5,800 children that are in DHS custody. Another term for that is out-of-home care. And then half of those children are in kinship foster care. And so kinship foster care is it's where the foster parents already know the children. And so it's a grandmother, grandfather, it's an aunt and uncle, it's a teacher. Kinship can be really broad. It can be a neighbor. It doesn't have to be any type of blood relation. We had a situation where, we had one of our bookkeepers, her daughter was in class with a young lady that was in foster care, and then that placement disrupted, and so that young lady ended up moving in as a kinship placement with this person that she had no relationship with at all. I mean, it was, but because her daughter had relationship, a friendship with this young lady in class, then she was classified as kinship. So I think DHS is doing a better job of expanding the definition of kinship so that children can stay with people that they have some prior connection to. That's what really is best for children. We want children to stay in their community, in their school, and hopefully the first night that they're away from their parents, hopefully they're in the home of somebody that they know and they trust. And so some of the misconceptions, I think, is that like most children are just taken and put in strangers' homes, and that's just not the case. It's about half the kids that are in care aren't able to go into a kinship placement, and then they go to that traditional foster home. And then another misconception, I think, is that DHS is the only path to becoming a foster parent. But I'll say about half of the foster parents are supported by private agencies like the Meadows of Hope. So there's about 15 private agencies. Some of them are regional or local, like Angels Foster Care mainly focuses on Edmond, Oklahoma City, and Norman. There's some foster home agencies in southeast Oklahoma that just focus primarily in that area. And so the DHS is always an option to go to if you want to be a foster parent. But there's also private agencies that are a good resource.
So what's the difference between like you all and DHS?
Well,
so why should people go with a private agency?
I think, here's the deal. It's, in my opinion, it's really about the people and the relationships. There are some really, I would say, the resource workers, that's what DHS calls their foster care workers in this area. They're great people, and a lot of them have been there a while. And so around Payne County and this place, I don't have anything bad to say about the DHS resource workers. They support their families well. They've got their backs. They're good people. But the state is a huge bureaucracy, right? And so getting requests, asking for those kind of out-of-the-box things, it can be just a little bit more cumbersome. A private agency, one of the things is like I'm the CEO and I'm here. And so if there's a question or a concern, somebody can actually come in and talk directly to me. You'd have a little bit more difficulty getting in to see the director of DHS, the new director, Cartmel. And so I think, and then the fact that we can leverage those private donations to bring in extra resources for our families. I think it matters, but at the end of the day, it comes down to relationships with people. And there are some, just because it's a private agency doesn't necessarily mean that they run their organization well, and that private agencies can have turnover too.
Right.
We've had some turnover, and so
they can lose their contract with the state if they're not.
Yeah, if they're not doing
meeting
what
the standards.
Yeah. So but I think the opportunity that I think working with a private agency gives is we do have a contract with the state, but we're not an employee of the state. And so that allows us to maybe disagree a little louder at times. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I think really what I want to say is there is some accusations that DHS is this bad boogeyman that comes in and steals your children. And, if you go back, to the 70s and 80s of child welfare, especially people low income, brown skin, minorities, child welfare was a real scary entity that had the authority to take your children away. And so I think there is some legitimate fear when you have an entity like the state that can take your children away. That's scary.
Yeah.
But I think the numbers going down, I'm not as concerned that I'm not as concerned that we're taking too many children away from their parents. The cases that I see of the kiddos that come in with some really serious physical and sexual abuse, there's no question. We've got to take those kids. We've got to make sure they're safe. And there's got to be a place. There's got to be people that are willing to step into that almost impossible place of caring for this child. And we're in a society, groceries are very expensive. Fentanyl is very available. And we're 5 years post-global pandemic, and we have the lowest number of kids in foster care that I can remember, and being in this space for, over 20 years.
That's great.
And so I think that the reality is there's probably kids that need to be in foster care that aren't right now. And we've got to do a good job as a community to keep our eyes open and be willing to take care of the most vulnerable in the community, not with the goal of just taking them and never giving them back, but to intervene and bring in supports and help that child and that parent heal and recover so that we can stop the cycle. So that's, part of our mission at the Meadows of Hope is to unite brothers and sisters that are experiencing foster care, but it's also to provide healing to them so that they grow up to become healthy people that are productive part of society, that we stop that generational pattern of abuse and all the other things that have contributed to a kiddo coming into care. So
that's great. Any final thoughts about foster care, Stillwater?
Well, if you hang out with somebody in foster care, they're usually, they'll bring the party down. You know what I'm saying? Because they see the shadow of society. Yeah, they're dealing with stuff. And so at a dinner table, they can be like, oh, how was your day? Oh, well, we had a shocking and heinous physical abuse of a 6-year-old last week. And it was great. But so sometimes it can be a downer, but I will say the people in this business, they've got hearts and they have emotions, and they're people, and they deserve to laugh and to have fun and to live a life, and go kind of forget about the hard things that they're seeing every day. And so if you see somebody that works in this space, maybe just give them like a caramel apple or something.
Yeah. Are you saying that because you really like caramel apples?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bryan.
You
It's
bet.
been great. Everybody, check out Lions Meadows of Hope on social media. Follow them. Get in touch if you're interested in foster care. They need people. We all need people. So let's do it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Still Connect. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bryan. Be sure to check out Lions Meadows of Hope on all their social media, linked in the show notes below. And if you loved today's episode, don't forget to follow the podcast on social as well for highlights, updates, and more. And always be sure to share the podcast with your Stillwater friends so that we can grow the podcast and our community. If you believe in building community through these conversations, consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, where, for a small monthly commitment, you can get early access to episodes, a peek behind the curtain at the podcast making process, and a shout out on an episode. With a higher level contribution, you can submit questions for upcoming guests, make special requests for the show, get access to online Q&As, and even be on the podcast for an interview segment. No matter what your capacity for supporting the podcast is, every little bit helps grow this amazing community. And we all need community. So even when life gets busy, make sure you still connect.